Hey, and good Friday morning, everybody. Meteorologist Greg Majeski back with you here on the Weather Nerds YouTube channel. Hope you guys having a great day. Are you ready for the weekend? Well, we're going to break it down for you, let you know what you can expect here from coast to coast across America, get you ready for the upcoming weekend. As we're going to be dealing with a coastal low in the east, we're going to be dealing with some flooding rains in the southwest. We got another storm system in the northwest. We got some snows out there and warm weather in the middle of the country. We got a little bit of everything out there for you for today. Now, if you're new here to the channel, and I'd like to introduce myself as your friendly neighborhood weatherman, a guy who likes to give it to you straight without giving you the doom and gloom and tell you that every storm is the storm of the century when it's not. So my motto here is to keep you prepared and not scared, and just keep you weather aware when the weather becomes significant in your area. All right, let's go ahead and talk about our temperature extremes yesterday. We had 15 degrees was our cold up there at Mount Washington up there in New Hampshire yesterday, and then Death Valley out here in Southern California, 102. Those were our extremes yesterday. You can clearly see here, we've got the little thunderstorms here across Missouri this morning. Well, and we've got some thunderstorms down here in South Florida as well. We're going to take a look at those storms in Missouri here in just a second. Take a look at your weather map this morning. We got nice high pressure in the northeast, kind of cool and chilly up there. A lot of frost and freeze advisories out there. I see a 27 out there in Connecticut right now. And we're watching this little mess here on the southeast coast. May put a fly in my forecast for the weekend for North Georgia, where I'm at. Might see a few clouds try to back in here, so watch that closely. Here's some thunderstorms here across portions of Missouri and Illinois this morning. It's tapping this moisture coming up in here. We got numerous flash flood watches I'm going to show you around this area as well. And unsettled weather out here on the west coast. And got us a little cool down, but not overly cold there across the northern plains with that frontal system there. All right, let's go look at those storms there across portions of the Missouri here for this morning. Let me go over to Radar Omega here. As you can kind of see some of that rain there coming into Jefferson City. It looks like we'll get some wet weather here into St. Louis as well for this morning as this comes on through. Lightning intensity starting to decrease a little bit, so this is losing a little bit of its punch as this continues to move off toward the south and east. All right, let's look at the current watches warnings out there. Obviously, we had that cold weather here in the northeast. Got that there. Look at all the flash flood watches out here. Got some winter weather advisories up here across portions of Idaho and into Montana. They're going to get a little snow up that way. A little breezy there on the coast. See a little bit of wind advisories there on the California coast right now as well. All right, let's do a quick look out in the tropics. We did get Karen. I'm not going to spend any time on this, but this is kind of the I've never seen a storm form that far up. It's kind of a hybrid system. When we get Karen to form out in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, this is up in the North Atlantic. Not to worry about that. And Jerry looks like it's not going to make hurricane status. The environment's just not very conducive for that. It's just going to continue to move up to the north, stay as a tropical storm, and then as the trough comes off the eastern seaboard, it's going to yank it on out to sea. You don't have to worry about that system. I can barely even tell it's a tropical system at this point. Look at this collage of stuff in here. Pretty messy out there. Here is Raymond out here, and again, we got the moisture coming up this way, and this moisture too is also going to come up this way, so that's going to be a bit of a problem for areas of the southwest today especially, and hopefully it won't be so bad through the weekend, but the weekend's really not looking great because of that. Now let's go look at your forecast models. This is the eSigns European model. It's my model of choice here as we kind of look at different model runs. As you clearly see Jerry doing a right turn. We got another tropical disturbance that may also get hooked up out there. I've been talking about this for the last few days. Today, not looking as robust as yesterday as far as potential low development down there in the Western Caribbean. So we'll continue to watch that as yesterday looked a little more prominent that we might get something developed down there. We'll see how it looks as we go through the weekend. And of course, we'll track it into next week. As we're getting a little bit long on the tooth for this hurricane season, we only got about, six and a half more weeks left. And then we're done. And, we have not had a landfalling storm so far this year. So if we can make it through the rest of the season without one, I'm okay with that. No big deal there. Now, as far as those storms out there on the other side, there's Priscilla, there's Raymond. Okay, Priscilla's moisture is already moving up. It's already getting fed to the north there. It's going into Arizona. And then Raymond's moisture is also going to get drawn into that as well. So that's going to cause some problems there. So there is Priscilla's course is kind of becoming extratropical. Not to worry about that really too much, but really it's keeping an eye on Raymond's moisture here as its too is also going to go to the north and keep it very wet, very rainy, and flooding will be a problem for you folks in the southwest. So if you're in a flood prone area, if you know an area is getting flooded, like I always tell you, don't drown, turn around, stay safe out there. because when I see red lighting up on a map here from the folks here of the WPC, showing a 40% chance for flooding. We're talking Flagstaff, Prescott. It does include the Phoenix metro area down here in the yellow. Again, getting into Utah as well. Any of these areas in here are going to be prone for some flooding. So please be careful. This also gets into portions of Colorado as well. This whole area is under the gun. And I want to show that. I want to go back here off script here again, go back to here, show you those flash flood watches that are up for that area. So please heed any of the warnings that come out for your area that it's going to be a problematic here through the weekend. Let's go check out day 2 outlook here. We are going to be watching 2 areas as we go through the weekend. So I got to pull back out here a little bit. Is the coastal areas here. We got that coastal low, some flooding potential there across North Carolina. And then obviously the Four Corners areas, that moisture kind of feeds up here going into the weekend. Day 3, this kind of shifts up into areas of into the northeast, going into New Jersey, down toward Delaware. Problems there. And you still got that flooding potential here across Arizona and New Mexico as well going into Sunday. So the southwest is going to stay wet, and the eastern seaboard is going to stay wet with those 2 different storm systems there. One is tropical in nature, one is just a coastal low that's spinning up off the eastern seaboard there. All right, and now let's go ahead and take a look at your organized thunderstorm threat for the weekend. Just general thunderstorm threat here for the most part. Not expecting anything here. Here's your day 1 for today. You see it out on the west coast, Intermountain region. Already got a few thunderstorms there in Missouri this morning. Day 2 going into Saturday. Maybe a marginal risk here across portions of Utah and into northern Arizona going into Saturday. And then going into Sunday, just a general threat here as that storm system begins to pull out in the plains here going in toward your Sunday. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about the model data here. We're going to be first talking at the NAM, the 3 kilometer here. As this is an intermediate model, takes you about 60 hours, gets you out to about Sunday afternoon. All right, so starting out here on the East Coast, we're talking about this system down here. You see it there kind of spinning around. This is our coastal low down here that's going to be causing us some problems. So you guys just got to watch out for the coastal flooding. That's going to be a problem. That's going to be a bit of a headache to watch, obviously, right in here. And then we got this energy that's kind of diving down here, that's kind of spurring this development here, that's going to coast this up the eastern seaboard. All right, so that's one. Middle of the country, really not looking bad. Midwest down here, south central U.S. Look at the snows here erupting up across the northern tier, across Wisconsin, Washington State, Idaho, going into Montana. Getting some pretty decent snows erupting there as that system comes on the east coast, west coast, and then we got the moisture flow that's just going to continue to pop up in here across the southwest here for this weekend. So some heavy rains out there. And you can see that here clearly on the map here showing the rainfall totals that take us out till Sunday afternoon. So we're talking about Utah, we're talking about areas out in here, getting a little bit wet in this whole zone right through there as that moisture continues to feed out ahead of that upper low that's diving down the west coast, kind of drawing that moisture northward. And then we still got some significant rains here along the coastal areas here across North Carolina down toward Florida. That's also going to be problematic. A little bit of rain there. Obviously, we're seeing that this morning. But definitely staying wet out in the west. But a big part of the Midwest, south central U.S., you're going to stay dry. Not going to see a whole lot of moisture here going into the weekend. Still looking at this temperature program continuing with the warm air in the middle of the country. And that's going to stay there all weekend, guys. I wish I had better news for you. Not very fall-like here across the middle of the country here when I see 80s punching up in Nebraska and into South Dakota. Just unreal. There's some chill in the Intermountain region. You've seen the blue showing up on there. And we got a little cool air wedge here on the East Coast. But the middle of the country is going to stay warm right through the weekend. Not going to see any big changes there, unfortunately. And then obviously a little hot there in the southwestern portion of the U.S. But again, we're not getting any real major taps of any real big cold dumps just yet coming out of Canada. Now, let's talk about the jet stream here. This is the European 500 millibar anomaly map where we kind of track our storm systems there. Oranges are high pressure, blues are troughs and our low pressures here. And the European still wants to beat back that trough and stuff, but we just have not had model continuity. We're okay for about 7 days, but then we're just not seeing any real change to the pattern here. Here's our system here on the west of the East Coast here, kind of moving on off. Here's your big storm on the West Coast. West Coast is going to stay below normal and cool going into next week. That much we know. Look at this big ridge here. We got high pressure building here toward Tuesday here across the middle of the country here. So that's going to stay Very warm there for next week. So above normal temperatures will continue into next week. And this kind of holds true for most of the week here. Goes right into toward Friday. You see that big trough kind of digging there on the northeast as well. And then after next weekend, then it starts to beat that ridge down. You see that thing start to move, we get that movement in there. Again, the long-range models have got to show some continuity there, because right now the Climate Prediction Center is keeping it pretty mild there in the middle of the country there, and we're not really tapping anything really cool either coming down as well. We're just kind of a progressive west-east flow. We're not tapping anything real cold there, nor are we getting enough of a storm system to push to get us some of this Gulf moisture to kind of come out ahead of this as well. That is definitely needed across the south as the drought conditions continue to expand down that way. So as we go and take a look at the 7-day here, this is European 7-day. Again, what we're seeing is we got this East Coast system that's going to continue to kind of move on out of here. And when it does, it's going to just kind of kick on out. We're going to continue to see these systems here kind of doing this number. So we get these little disturbances kind of riding up through here. But the Midwest, South Central, this portion, yeah, you're kind of looking kind of dry. You're kind of missing all the action in there. Not seeing a whole lot here going into next Friday. All right, so again, no big storm systems across the country except for the East Coast system that's expanding and that tropical moisture coming in across the southwestern portion of the U.S. All right, here's your rainfall totals here the next 7 days. Again, that big nothing sandwich right there between the Midwest touching back toward Texas. Very dry there. East Coast damp. West, obviously very wet with all that tropical moisture, and that upper low kind of swinging in there. That storm system on the West Coast looking pretty wet. A little bit of rain will sneak out into the high plains there a little bit. But that's about it there for the next 7 days. Snow totals, everything out in the west. I think this is a little underdone. I think, especially with what I'm seeing from the NAM, I think we'll see some increased snowfall here across Washington, Idaho, Montana. I think it's a little underdone here, and still seeing some higher snows, some pretty good snows there across the Sierra Nevada there, across California. All right. Now, as far as the temperatures are concerned, again, this is on Sunday. Look at these temperatures, upper 70s into South Dakota. This is unreal. I mean, here's your cold front. There's our next storm system, very warm in the middle of the country. That's going to be the theme for this upcoming week ahead. And as we go ahead and take you into your Columbus Day, again, very warm. There's 88 in Dallas, for example. You're getting 76. You got into the 70s. Again, we're getting in middle October. It's supposed to be cooling down in the 50s and 60s for highs across the northern tier. We're not seeing that. So very warm here across a big portion of the country with above normal temperatures, relatively speaking, for October, right? All right, there's your 2 o'clock temperatures. Very warm across the south, continuing there. A lot of 80s there holding on. And there's a bit of a backdoor cool front here coming in here on Wednesday. A little bit of cool air kind of coming down there, a little drier air there. We've been seeing a lot of wedges this year so far this fall as well. And then as we go into your Thursday morning, look at these 60s for lows. God bless, this is crazy. Crazy seeing that. And there's your 2 o'clock. Once again, the 70s showing up there on Thursday. We just can't beat that ridge down as you saw that high pressure there. And then going into Friday next week, again, look at this, 78 and up near Minneapolis next week. This is unbelievable. Next Friday, you got 80s here into Missouri, 80s across Texas in the south. Cooler in the northeast, cool in the west, but that's going to stay in place. So as long as we don't get the model continuity beyond the 7-day, Climate Prediction Center is not going to change that. They're just not going to change the outlook here. So as I go ahead and take a look at this outlook here, we'll first start out with the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook here. You see a slight cool down here across the northeast. We see that out here in the west, but very, very warm here in the middle of the country by October standards. And looks like that continues next week, as we just showed you there. And that stays the same going all the way out to the 23rd. No big changes. But you saw the model. I wanted to show you that it's trying to break that down. If that happens, then maybe this changes a little bit. But again, they're not seeing that model continuity. Got to see that before we start seeing those changes. And the other story, this drought conditions, without getting that jet stream to be a little more progressive to tap some Gulf moisture, we're going to stay very dry across the southeast. Drought conditions are going to continue out there. We're going to stay wet out in the west. That's going to continue as well. And that 8 to 14 day really doesn't change. Again, almost looks like a broken record there, going from the 17th to the 23rd. So again, weekend, you guys on the East Coast, Florida Gulf Coast, Southeast, we've got to watch out for that low pressure system on the East Coast there. And then out west, you all got to pay attention to all that tropical moisture there. That's going to be causing some flooding, some headaches there. We got to wait for Raymond to clear on out of there. And then once Raymond clears on out, maybe we'll get a bit of a break from the heavy rains out there in the west, and you got that storm system moving on the west coast. But folks in the middle of the country are hoping for a real type of fall weather to be in here. I mean, you're getting some 30s out there this morning. It's a little bit better, closer to normal, but you're going to warm right back up again, as you just saw here, going into next week. All right, appreciate you guys checking us out. Edith, good to see you there. Appreciate you checking us out. Michael, good to see you there as well. And for those who did not hear, we are officially in La Nina, although I've been declaring La Nina now for like 2 weeks now because of everything I've been seeing with our weather pattern here. We've had a strong La Nina basically in place since September. In October, it's still there. Now, the forecast is for it to weaken as we go into the winter months, but officially they're keeping us in the La Nina conditions through February. We'll see how it works out as we track the weather this winter. I think this winter is going to be kind of topsy-turvy. I think we're going to have extremes of highs and lows, and I think we're going to have some severe weather potential there going into November, especially with that jet stream making that transition. I think it's as wildly amplified as I think it's going to get here for this upcoming winter season. All right, that is your update. You guys take it easy. Have a great weekend. Be good to your families out there, and we'll see you next Monday on the next